All right, I'm about to hit the start webinar. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. My name is Tamika Miller. I'm the Vice President of Marketing and Events with the Greater New Haven Chamber of Commerce. I'm delighted to be here with three panelists that you'll hear from today, all about positioning transferable skills and training and resources that are available to you now. And if you are here and you're a member of the hospitality industry, you want to listen in very, very closely for some information that we're about to share. And actually, I'm going to share some information with you in the next few seconds. So again, I want you to listen up. I'm going to tell you a little bit about the people that you'll be hearing from, and then I'm going to share information with you. So first, you'll hear from Frances Trelease. She is the founder of Boomer Den. You'll be hearing from her first. Then we'll hear from our own Ray Andrewson. He's the Director of Membership Services at the Greater New Haven Chamber of Commerce. And he will give you his own personal story about how he's transitioned, how he's positioned his transferable skills. And then we will follow it up by hearing from Duncan McIntyre. And he is the Talent Development Facilitator at American Job Centers here in Connecticut as well. But first, I have the privilege of speaking with Scott Dolch, who is the Executive Director of the Connecticut Restaurant Group. And he wanted me to share with you some helpful information. So if you are specifically in the hospitality industry, there are a bunch of services and grants that the Connecticut Restaurant Association is making available to you. And in a moment, when I'm done speaking, I'm going to put this information into the chat as well. But there's a job board available. There is surf safe training. So anyone who works behind the scenes, back of house at a restaurant, you know how important surf safe training is. Try saying that 3 times fast. But it's critical. So there is some training programs. They even have some grant dollars that are available to help you take some of the courses if you need some money to help afford the courses. There's also a training program that's available to help people advance from level to level. So if you're an entry-level position within the restaurant industry and you're trying to move up, there are some training dollars set aside to help you be able to afford the training to do that. There's also an employee relief fund. So if you're an employee within the restaurant industry and you're looking for some additional funds and dollars, there are those resources available for you. And last but not least, there is an employer program. The Connecticut Restaurant Association partnered up with DoorDash, and they will be launching very soon $5,000 grants available to you. So you want to make sure that you log on to connecticutrestaurant.org. And again, I'll put that in the chat for you, connecticutrestaurant.org. And as more information becomes available that the Chamber is privy to, we will share that with you in the restaurant and hospitality industry. And now, without further ado, it is my pleasure to hand the floor over to Frances Trelease, the founder of Boomer Den. And she's going to talk to you about some strategies and tips to help you position your transferable skills.
Thank you, Tamika. Thank you very much. Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us this afternoon. I'm honored to be here. So I'm going to speak to you for just a few minutes on the topic of making a mid-career change. If you've been in one field, if you're transitioning to another for whatever the reason, just some guidance, tools that you can use to help you get from point A to point B. I'd like this to be participative. I actually have a little 8-step exercise to take you through. I welcome questions, comments in the chat box as we go through the steps. I do have a PowerPoint presentation, if it's possible to load that at this time. I can take everyone through that. So, okay. So the title of my presentation is called Navigating a Mid-Career Change. So it's designed to be for people who are not brand new to the workforce. They're not brand new career graduates, college graduates, but they've been out there and for whatever reason, they're looking for something new. Next slide, please. Okay, so what this slide talks about is that change is scary, change is risky for everyone. Sometimes we welcome and we seek the change. Sometimes the change is thrust upon us. But in either case, I think the takeaway is to learn how you can capitalize on it, how you can find opportunities within those periods of change. And also I'll talk a little bit about being able to balance risk and to make that decision when change is feasible and when you might want to hold back a little bit. So just looking at this from a practical standpoint, as well as a skills and talent standpoint. Next slide, please. Okay, so, you know, survey after survey has shown that so many people, for a myriad reasons, myriad factors, are looking for something new in terms of career, whether you've been downsized, whether you've been furloughed because of this pandemic, whether you yourself are successfully employed, but you're not feeling satisfaction and you're looking for something else. I think if you just look around us, so many of us are feeling like it's time to make a change. The question then comes in, how do you do it? Is this feasible? Is this something that I can successfully do? So the other thing that I wanted to say is some other factors are that our economy and our workforce is changing. We're shifting over to more of a gig economy. There are many more people looking for freelance as opposed to sort of that old-fashioned salaried position that's going to be there for you forever. And I've talked to a lot of people who have maybe spent 20 years in one field and they're ready to try something new, entrepreneurship, freelancing, sort of manning their own ship. So there's a lot of different factors that go into this. Next slide, please. Okay. You know, again, there have been so many surveys out there just looking at whether people are not only satisfied in their jobs, but engaged. And one of the reasons this is important is because motivation and engagement absolutely tied to productivity. And people who get fulfillment and satisfaction from their jobs are much more likely to be productive. And that, of course, translates to a company's productivity and success. So something like a Gallup survey, and Gallup has been around forever. The latest numbers that I have were 2018, which showed even there that a third of U.S. workers, only a third of U.S. workers feel like they are actively engaged. We have 13% who feel actively disengaged. And from what I read here, that number has gone down, so that's good news, but they're still out there, which means that a majority of workers are not actively satisfied and engaged with their jobs. I can make an educated guess that here in 2021, especially with the havoc that's been wreaked upon the workforce with COVID and the pandemic, that those numbers, if Gallup were to put out 2021 numbers, they would probably be even higher. If we could go to the next slide, please. Okay, I have embedded in this presentation two brief YouTubes. One of them is a very short story of someone who, I believe he's in his 50s, and he successfully left one career and he started another, and he briefly tells his story. I have another brief YouTube that's just about, you know, similar, complementing what this presentation is. It's tips on how to navigate moving from one field to another. What I'm opting to do now is to hold those two YouTubes for if we have time at the end of the presentation. But for now, so I'd like to come back to them if we can, but for now, I have to come a little exercise. It's an 8-step exercise that I'd like everyone to do with me. So I've arranged this, if everyone could just grab a piece of paper and pen, or just have a Word document opened, and we can run through these together. And I'm not sure how to find the chat, but I'll figure it out, because what I'd like to do as we go through is give you this little exercise, take a couple minutes, have you write some of your answers, and then either raise your hand or comment, and I'd like to get some feedback from you as we go along. Okay, so this is step 1, 8 tips to navigate the waters. And step 1 just starts with taking a look, an honest look at yourself, taking a step backwards and doing a self-assessment. So what I'm looking for with these bullets is kind of a look at what are your most core skills. Independent of a job you may be working at, independent of a job you may be trying for, if you were to step back, what are those core skills that you have that you know that you could take with you to wherever you go, whether it's certifications, degrees, years of experience doing a certain thing? What are your key competencies in your view? Experience, skills, and competency. If everyone could, and this obviously on my last bullet, this is a time to be very honest with yourself, because you want to look at what truly is there and what you can build on and what might need more work if necessary. So is it possible to take a couple minutes and go through this, and then just ask me some questions in chat? Okay. Okay, I will go on to the next. Would anyone like to, oh, I'm sorry. If we could flow back to step 1 for a minute. Would anyone like to share with me what you've identified as your core skills that you could take with you somewhere? I have a question here. Does it make sense to have friends or former colleagues help with the assessment? Absolutely. You know, we're in a confined period of time now. We have another 30, 35 minutes. I believe this presentation is going to be available through the chamber. I absolutely, sometimes other people know you better than you know yourself. Former colleagues, former coworkers, friends, absolutely get their input. I think that could make sense. Anyone else like to share? Okay. All right, why don't we move on to step 2? Okay. Step 2 is a look at, if you take all the practical considerations aside, we're all constrained by financial, geographic, what kind of commute would it be, what kind of hours, that sort of thing. If you could, for a moment, just suspend those and look at what gets you going in the morning. So I have step 2 as inventory the things that you love to do. After that morning cup of coffee, and I don't do anything without that morning cup of coffee, but afterwards, what gets you passionate? What gets you feeling like, I'm ready to go, I'm going to have fun today, I'm going to create, I'm going to be satisfied with what I do today? And my 4th bullet down is that question: how would you spend your ideal day if you could? What would that look like? Would you be in groups of people? Would you be alone? We have all personality types. Some people love, for example, working in a laboratory where they are by themselves and they're sectioned off from others. Other people get energized by having flows of activity around them and being parts of people running around, and how would you envision yourself in that perfect, ideal environment, everything else holding steady? If we could take a couple minutes and have you just, these don't have to be extensive answers. These can maybe be 2 or 3 bullets as I've bulleted this page. If we could take a couple minutes to do that. I hope I'm finding these questions. Would anyone like to share? Is it outdoors running a beach property? Putting up beach umbrellas? Anyone? Okay. I hope you're filling these out as you go along. I think these are things, the idea here is that you're going to go back and look at your notes and be able to get some of those insights that you can use to guide you on the next step. So if there, oh, no, I guess I'm not doing that right. I'm sorry. Okay, can we go on to step 3, please? Okay. Step 3 is related to step 2, but it's not exactly the same thing. So step 2, you're looking at, all constraints aside, how would I spend my perfect day? Step 3 is related, but it's looking at, what are your values? What are those things important to you that are drivers for what you're looking for? So, you know, for example, some people, in all honesty, some people, when they move from one career to the next, if you ask them why, their objective is, I want to make more money. Okay, I was making X, I want to make Y, and that's fine. Some say it's, I want that big corner office, I want a certain title. The key is to be honest with it and to look at what drives you. I offer some suggestions such as autonomy, being able to be your own boss. For some people, that's very important. There are others who don't want to be. There are many people who say, look, I'm going to be satisfied. Let the boss have the headaches. I want to come in, do my job, and then go home. Autonomy isn't that important to me. Is it creativity? I know some people who they want to be able to build. They want to be able to create, have their ideas heard. That might be something, an internal reward that's very important to you. Intellectual stimulation. I mean, that's a big one. There are many people working at jobs where they're just not, they may be doing a great job at it, but they're not challenged. Either they don't feel they're using their education, or they're not learning new things, or they're not being challenged to move up to that next level. So intellectual stimulation is one of them. Do you get rewards by helping others, whether it's people, whether it's animals, whether it's disadvantaged groups? Is that something where you derive satisfaction? Would you best prefer to work alone or work in a group? My last bullet, doing activities that produce tangible results. Again, a lot of jobs, very valuable jobs, but you may be a cog in the wheel and you don't necessarily see the end product of what you're creating. Is it important to you to be able to see what you've had a role in building, to be able to see that end product, whether it's a service or it's a tangible good? So if you could take a moment or two now and list out some of those, and believe me, this can take more time than the couple minutes we're allotting here, but this is just sort of a sampler. You will be able to come back to this presentation, but the goal here is to just get the wheels turning on the kinds of things that you would want to look at before you have a plan ready to navigate that career change. So if you could take a moment or two and jot down some notes, and I'd be interested to hear. Okay, so I have a comment from one of the attendees, working on a team to create something that solves a problem and winning as a team. Thank you very much. To be able to see success within your team project. Thank you. That came from Dennis Sullivan. Thank you. From Cindy Zacks, like working with people, more easy going than textbook. Started career looking for money, but have found that as time went on, it became less important. What is more fulfilling is what is truly more important, I believe, in the end. Thank you, Cindy. So many people, what were your drivers before can change over time, whether it's through experience, whether it's just new insights that you have. You want something now that may be fulfilling to you in a way that it might not have been 10 years ago, it might not have been 5 years ago. Thank you, both of you. Anyone else have a comment for this slide? Thank you very much. Okay, can we go on to step 4? Okay. Step 4 is the hunter-gatherer slide. This is the one where once you completed those earlier exercises, now it's looking for some active participation on your part, some active steps that you can take. So this is where you become a little bit of a detective. I call it collector and gatherer. So once you've identified what some of your personal traits are, what some of those things are that are rewarding to you, is to start to brainstorm a list of options. And at this step in the game, this is not to be a filtered list. There's no such thing as a dumb answer. Well, I'm not going to put that on my list because that sounds silly. This is a step to just, if it crossed your mind, hey, here's something that sounds interesting. It might fit with the kind of work ethic I have or the way I like to work. Put it down in a list of options, because once you've completed that list, however long it may be, then the most important next step is to do outreach. And this is a very important, very rewarding step, because now, once you've isolated some possible fields, you want to go out and talk to people who are in that field, either working for companies that you respect and admire and might be interested in, or people who you know are in those particular fields, who just to sit down with them and say, this is how I envision the job, but you've been doing it for a while. Does it match what my thoughts about it? What's your experience with it? What are the positives about a job like this? What are the negatives? What are the drawbacks? I also put here, so many of us, we've gone through high school, college, certification programs, and we have this resource called alumni and professional associations. And I think that a lot of times they go untapped. Even sometimes we become members, and we're annual members and we pay our dues, but we just don't really use them. So to find those people within your network who are the right people to talk to, reach out to alumni groups, reach out to your professional associations. LinkedIn, I can't say enough about LinkedIn, and I know there are whole separate workshops on how to maximize the effectiveness of LinkedIn, but to find these people, and then it bears writing in capital letters to talk to them. So I would call this my outreach step. Before we go on, do any of you have a comment on whether you're in contact with some of these professional groups and whether you think they could be useful for you to do some more fact finding and research? Okay, that's okay if not. I just want to make sure that everyone is thinking about this. Okay, so why don't we move on to step 5. Okay, I told you in step 4 to not narrow your list. Just brainstorming on a chart, white paper, piece of paper on your screen. Step 5 is a chance to narrow and refine the list, because the ideal is that once you've gone out and you've spoken to people and you've matched your view of it with what their reality is or what the typical workday is like. Now you can say, okay, I had 8 career ideas on my list. Now I'm going to narrow that down. I can cross out research assistant because I found out that their hours are not, I'm sort of making this up, but I can rule out that field because of something I found out. I can rule out that field. And incidentally, in talking to people, you may find that there's a field or a career you didn't think of, but in your conversations with these people, oh yeah, someone mentioned to me that there's a new type of profession that's related that my skills can go to, and I hadn't really thought of that before I talked to them. So when I say refine your list, it's a chance to take some out, add some in, but ideally what you're doing is you're shortening, because now you're making what's called the short list. So if you had 7 or 8 jobs, maybe now you've got 2 or 3 that are starting to look more feasible and more realistic. And then what I recommend in step 5, and you'll see as each step goes on, you're getting more and more engaged and you're getting more active with the steps that you're taking, is to take that short list and say, okay, how do I test this out? I've spoken to people, I've done the research, I found out it fits my values. I think this would be rewarding for me. How do I actually test it out? And so what I recommend at this point is to look at several options for doing that, whether it's volunteering, calling up an organization and saying, you know, I'm really interested in possibly getting into this field. Can I give you a few hours a week just to help out, to learn, kind of soak in the atmosphere? Securing short-term, part-time positions, contract positions, exploratory internships. And actually, that's one thing that Boomer Den was founded on. I now do recruiting of all kinds, but when I started Boomer Den, it was to set up exploratory internships for adults looking to change fields to check out a new employer by spending 8 to 10 weeks there as an intern. It's still a viable route for people who want to. It's an exchange. You give some of your time in exchange. They give guidance. They do some mentoring for you. So to consider that. Another thing that you might want to look at is you may be very close to being able to start a new profession, but you might be just a little bit short on training. So to look at, do you need a few more classes? Do you need a short-term certification to have the skills to do that next position? If so, where do you get that training? Say you've been a writer, professional writer, but now everything is going more digital. So you want to learn SEO, you want to learn social media writing. Okay, where do you go to get that training? How do you brush up on your skills so that you're one step closer to where you want to go? Any comments or questions on my step 5? Okay, let's move on to step 6. Okay, step 6 is what I call the elephant in the room, because, when we looked at the earlier slides, it's blue sky. What would your ideal day look like? What would you find rewarding? But that all falls within the context of what you realistically and practically can do. And again, people are looking for change for any number of reasons. If you find yourself in a situation where your job was eliminated, where I've talked to many people who've been furloughed since COVID, and so for months on end, they may have a job to return to, they may not. They're sort of in an ongoing furlough, or your hours were cut. You were working 30 hours somewhere, now you're working 15. So everyone's situation is different. Everyone's financial situation is different. But this step says that this is an important thing to consider, because anytime you are looking at where you want to go, you have to look at how do you get there? How do you get there safely without sacrificing the mortgage, being able to pay the utility bills, the basic monthly bills? So the types of questions I have here are, how much money realistically should you have in reserve before pursuing a new field? And again, this goes to people who aren't necessarily downsized. You're working full-time, you're gainfully employed, but you want to start something new. Well, can you afford to step away? Can you realistically leave your current situation to try something new? Again, that answer is going to be different for everyone depending on their situation. How can you prepare to become financially fit in the near future? So a lot of this is about having a practical plan to get there while your needs are being met. And I always pose the question, should you consult with a financial planner? Because sometimes it makes sense to kind of put your household budget, your household income, your earnings, your projected earnings on a table and say, we need a plan, I need some help. So that's my step 6. If we could go on to step 7, please. Okay. Okay, this again dovetails back to slide 5 a little bit in that it's asking you to do research, but this is a little bit more in depth. So you've spoken to people in the field, maybe you shadowed someone on the job, you've had some conversations, which is great news. But now you want to dig a little bit deeper in terms of where are the jobs going to be? Where are they slowing down? Where are opportunities opening up? What's trending or not trending in your industry? There's so much research out there. I bring up the Bureau of Labor Statistics as one example, but there's so many ways to really drill down and look at forecasts and look at projections of job growth, because that's another thing that you want to take into account. Not to say don't pursue a new career that feels right for you, but if, for example, it seems to be in decline, you want to be aware of that. The jobs are in decline. You want to be aware of that and be able to plan for that. And then again, you know, as we mentioned on an earlier slide, being able to evaluate those choices. Now you're pulling everything together. You've spoken to people. You've talked to alumni networks. You've spent some time on a job, whether you volunteered, you shadowed, you did an apprenticeship or internship, you looked at what the numbers have to say. This is all to get you to that second to bottom bullet, which says, do your expectations match reality? And the hoped for example, if you've identified 3 possible new careers, is that at least one of them has made it through all of these steps. And you have one that just, after doing everything, financial, everything else, okay, this feels right to me. If it doesn't, you scratch it off the list and you keep going and you do the process again. So steps 1 through 7 really take you from that blank slate, and they give you guidelines and they give you some kind of structure for how to approach a process like this. This is all how to navigate what can be a very scary, what can be a very intimidating process. So if we could move on to slide 8. Slide 8 is, okay, you did some hard work. Now you have to trust that you put a process in motion and let it go to work. And I put in here, it's definitely easier said than done. Change is scary. Risk is scary. The early stages of any kind of career change are very stressful, and that's an understatement. But what this final step says is to keep it in perspective, find a way to manage the stress. I don't have to tell anybody that in this virtual era, there are so many virtual yoga, meditation, exercise, breathing. Find ways to manage the fear and stress that comes with this process, and to commit to staying on this path until you find the answers that you're looking for. So these are the 8 steps. Before we go on to, I think we have time for one of the YouTube clips, I'd like to get some feedback, questions, thoughts from anyone here, whether you feel that, does this make sense to you? Does it not make sense to you? Does anyone have a question or comment? We have a quiet group. I know you're all thinking, but no one's volunteering their answer. Okay, someone is asking, can someone not be hired based on prior injuries that might impact their ability to perform the job? That's I think a different area. That's almost more employment law and what your rights are as an applicant and as a job applicant. I'm not sure I could give you a qualified answer there.
I'll be glad to jump in on that, Fran, if you don't mind. So first of all, it's really illegal for a company. There's all kind of laws to protect you from that. They should not be even asking you. Once you disclose something like that, then you have disclosed it, but you're not required to disclose that And if it does not have any impact, then they should certainly hire you. And there are also laws that maybe they will need to find some kind, if there's something that you might need to be able to successfully perform that job, they will be required to get that for you. If it's something that you choose to give up.
That's excellent. And I think you're right. I don't think legally they can say to you,
no,
do you have a prior injury?
Right, they can, but it's definitely a Department of Labor type question.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I would encourage you to reach out to the Department of Labor if you have questions in that regard. Thank you so much. Is there another question on any of the steps that we've covered? Okay, that was a good question. So we have, Shantae, would it be possible to play one of these two videos? And if not, we can certainly wrap up. Okay, here's a 6-minute video. She's talking a lot about the same things I am, but I thought that some of her comments they complemented well with mine. So if we could just run through this briefly, that would be great. Thank you. Oh, what are some challenge? Oh, all right, I'll come back to that question. Okay. Can everyone hear her?
You just don't know where to start. In this video, you'll learn 5 steps to help you make a smooth and effective career transition. And if you stay around until the end, you'll learn where you can find a free resume template that you can grab today and use to apply for your next job. If we've never met before, I'm Heather Austin from ProfessorAustin.com and the Career Club on Facebook. And on this channel, I provide simple solutions to help you launch a career you love. So if you're new here, consider subscribing and don't forget to hit that bell notification down below so you don't miss a thing. Making a career transition can be a scary thing, especially if you've been in one industry for a very long time. The good news is that if you're ready for something new, you don't need to start all over again. Before we jump into my 5 strategies to make a career change, remember that a career switch is different than a job switch. What you might find is that all you need is a job switch. So let's jump into it. Tip number 1, evaluate your current situation. So you want to think about, is a career move really something you want? Or are you just unhappy in your current position? So if you find that you enjoy what you do, but perhaps you don't enjoy the work environment, it might be best for you to find a position in the same field, but just with a different employer. This gives you the chance to put yourself in a positive work environment with fresh new energy. You might also want to consider a partial career change. This is a related position with a similar skill set and knowledge base. An example of this would be moving from a financial analyst position into an insurance underwriter, or even a multimedia artist into a graphic designer. Step number 2, conduct a self-assessment. This will help you narrow in on the types of positions that fit you best and help you pinpoint what you are good at. You'll also gain a greater insight into who you are as a person. So take a few minutes to answer these questions. What will get you out of bed in the morning? What do you love to do? What are you passionate about? What would you do for free? Think about what creates that burning fire inside of you. Now, what if you don't know what you like to do or what you're passionate about? That's okay. You can start by listing your life experiences in life that you've really enjoyed. Also, list the experiences in life that you haven't enjoyed. Another thing you can do is ask others that you trust most what they think you do best. And don't underestimate the power of a personality test. One of my favorites is 16personalities.com. It takes 12 to 15 minutes to answer a couple of questions to give you more input into who you are as a person and the types of positions that you will excel in. So I'll go ahead and link that up below. Step number 3, do your research. Conduct informational interviews with others that are in a field you would like to be in. Ask them, what do you like best about your position? What are some of the unique projects you get to work on? Or what do you not like about your position? Also, take a look at the Bureau of Labor Statistics. You can find just about anything you need to know about a specific position, such as the pay, the education level required, the on-the-job tasks that you would do, the training involved. Once you've conducted your research, you want to evaluate the types of skills and knowledge you'll need to jump into that position. And you'll also want to decide, is it worth your time and money to do the career switch? Step number 4 is to make a plan and start networking. You want to start by revamping your career documents, like your resume, your cover letter, your LinkedIn profile. They all need to be tailored for the specific position you'd like to be in. You also want to focus on transferable skills. So these are skills that you can take from your previous career and apply them to your new career. These are things like teamwork, flexibility, drive, innovation, written and oral communication skills, and even analytical skills. You want to highlight your superior performance. So how did you succeed in your previous position? And how would you add value to your new role? And then, of course, you want to surround yourself with people that are inspiring to you. There's a famous quote by Jim Rohn that says, "You are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with." Step number 5 is take action. Do the impossible. You want to start by connecting with people that are doing what you want to do, or that have the job title that you would like to have in the future. An easy way to do this is to send a customized message on LinkedIn. Your message could say something like, "Hey there, Sally Sue. We've never met in person, but I noticed that you are currently working at company XYZ. I'm very impressed with your experience and would love the opportunity to find out how you got to where you are today. Would you mind if we connect on LinkedIn?" Now, emphasizing your passion for the industry and the position will go a long way. You want to find groups and associations online and in person of the field you would like to go into and join them. This type of networking is one of the most powerful forms of job placement. In fact, it's been reported that 85% of jobs are filled via networking by referrals. Companies love to hire referrals because it costs them less, they have lower turnover, and it actually produces a higher quality employee. Now, to make this process a whole lot easier for you, I have a free resume template that you can download today and customize for your new position. I'll go ahead and link it up below. And if you liked this video, be sure to hit the like button down below. Make sure you share this with anyone you know that might benefit. And as always, be sure to subscribe, and I will see you in the next video.
All right, thank you very much. So I thought her presentation really dovetailed well with mine. It went a little more in depth about some ways to revamp your resume, but she's also a wonderful resource. So I think there's a final slide on here that I'd like to just show you guys while I believe we're almost out of time, but if I could take a moment to just get any final comments, well, that's okay. So there you go. All right. So here's who I am. I'm the founder of Boomer Den. If you'd like to learn more, if you have any questions, it's not coming up, but I'm just Fran at Boomer Den. There you go. There's my website, my office number. Please get in touch with me. I was honored to do this, and I hope that you all took some value from this. And I would like to go ahead now and introduce our next speaker. So Ray Anderson, I'd like to introduce Ray Anderson, and thank you, everyone. It was a pleasure.
Great. Thank you, Fran. That was a great presentation and a good video to reinforce your presentation too. You know, I was thinking, and Duncan will come in about, a few minutes after I just give this very brief talk about my transition into my current role with the Greater New Haven Chamber of Commerce. I was thinking about some of the key points that you were hitting on, Fran, and I think they were excellent. They were dead on straight, and you stole all my thunder.
No, you got your own.
Right now.
But thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. I think one of the problems we have is that we tend to define ourselves. Now think about if you're at Thanksgiving with family. Remember those days we used to gather around the Thanksgiving table without masks? You're at a cocktail party, friends, you're out. Just at a restaurant with someone, or you meet somebody for the first time, and one of the common questions, of course, is, what do you do? And immediately you have to come up with a title. You know, your business card has to be present. I am this. And for 33 years, if that question was asked of me, I would define myself saying I'm in the broadcasting industry, because I'd been in radio broadcasting for 33 years. Quite a considerable period of time. And I loved just about every minute of it. I truly loved my work, my career, my engagement, my growth over that period of time, the interesting cities I lived in, not just work here in Connecticut, but Boston, Washington, Baltimore. You know, it was really nice. But after 33 years in broadcasting 2 years ago, I had to redefine myself. So if that question were asked again, well, what do you do? I knew at that point, given the decline in radio broadcasting, that, and frankly, after 40, as you mentioned, you can even say after 50 with me.
Well, many of us are.
Yes, that's right. I had to answer that question differently. And then I thought we unfortunately try to pigeonhole ourselves into that definition, rather than talking about, as you talked about, Fran, your values, your experiences, where you've been of service, where you have served the community, your skills. Are you a communicator? Are you a stem cell person in research, or you are a STEM person with numbers?
Right.
What makes you authentic as a human being, and how do you transfer from one industry, as I have, into a somewhat similar industry, but with different characteristics? So yes, you know, if you've met somebody at say that imaginary cocktail party and said, well, what do you do? And they said, I'm a brain surgeon. That's a very specialized, very limited role. You work on brains. And of course, the joke would be you could always transfer to a different career, because somebody asks you, what do you do? Well, I'm a therapist. I'm a psychotherapist. And of course, they share the similar characteristics. Both jobs get inside your head. And if you think about it that way, there is that characteristic, but only you're getting in someone's head in different ways, very different ways. So what are similarities in terms of skills? Well, I had to assess my skills about 2 years ago. I'm a little north, sort of on the northern star edge of my career. You know, I've been working for many, many years since college, and I had to make life assessments at this point about what I wanted to do and what would be a really good fit. So doubling back to that point that Fran made about values in service and communication, why am I at a Greater New Haven Chamber of Commerce after being a longtime general manager and on-air broadcaster at radio stations? And essentially, it is sort of an extension. We're both, in a way, in the communications industry. We're doing it now. So I had that skill very well developed. Also, they're both people-related service industries. In radio, it was entertainment and also information and serving a community, which I did in my personal life by serving on boards and by being a longtime volunteer. And my biography is very long in terms of what I did as an extension of my values to serve in that capacity. Well, we're doing the same thing here. We're communicating and we're serving businesses, both small, mid, and large, all size business. So it was a fairly good transition. And when I came out of this, I knew my broadcasting career was over. I'm just not going to get another radio job because the industry is changing. I wasn't really willing to relocate. I'm not at a stage in my life with very, very entrenched deep roots around New Haven, where I wanted to upbed myself and go to Boston, Washington, Baltimore, or some other location, even New York City, which is down the street. So I had to look at what my life experiences have been like and put them into a job. And two things really helped. Naturally, networking. So I called upon my large network that had been well established with friends, family, but a professional network where people wanted to help. They wanted to be with me. And the conversations when I started with networking were soft. I didn't say, here's my resume. I'd like to network with you. You know, will you give me 10 minutes of your time? It was, do we have a cup of coffee? Could we have lunch? Can we just chat on the phone? Here's what I'm thinking of doing. Give me your opinion. Is this a crazy career path for me to pursue? What is your opinion of my best skills? Where do you think I'm deficient? What do I have to work at? And I took people, this network of friends, and I kept them with me during the entire job search. So I valued them as friends. I valued them as colleagues, and they were a valued part of my network. And your networking is only as strong as the bonds you create within that network. They're not one-offs. So if someone's trying to open a door and help you, it's not just the thank you note. It's the information you're going to use to tell them where you are in your journey looking for your next position. So you're keeping people with you. So essentially, your job search is collecting people. So 2 years ago, I had to think, and it was a very tough thing for me to give away or give up something I loved doing. I loved my last job. I mean, I never on Sunday night got that sense of anxiety. Oh, I'm going to work tomorrow. It was just an extension of my values. It was an extension of my skills and talents. And it was something I really wanted to do. So in a way, it was authentic. It was me. So another thing you have to be if you're searching for a job is be you, be authentic. Don't try to be another person. Don't try to live in someone else's voice where they're telling you what they think you have to do or ought to do. That's their opinion. You have to be who you are, and you have to know yourself. You have to know what you're good at, and you have to be honest. Again, Fran just mentioned it. You have to be brutally honest about what you have to work at. Now, my colleagues at the Greater New Haven Chamber of Commerce that have been here for 13 months, they're getting to appreciate some of my strengths. And I'm sure they're going to probably half smile when they know some of my weaknesses. And you're not going to be good at everything. You're going to have to consistently learn something new. You don't come to any new job anywhere with all the information. You're going to continually have to be a lifelong learner, and you're going to have to adapt to new technology and new ways of doing business, and the acceptance that some industries are rising while some industries are falling. You have to do your homework, and you have to understand that and be, again, brutally honest with yourself. So for those of you in the hospitality industry, restaurants, hotel industry, if I asked you that question at the cocktail party or over lunch, what do you do? Would you say, well, I'm a bartender? Would you say, well, I've been a waitress? Well, I've been director of sales at a small hotel. The hotel industry, the restaurant industry, and the hospitality industry are touched by other industries. Travel, also in an interesting way, marketing, also in terms of service, and not just food service, because people are looking for different venues for entertainment as well. So broaden your perspective with other industries. And what I did in my job search is I started to think about other positions like executive director. I've been a general manager. I've done and run budgets. I've managed staff and motivated people for my whole career. At a nonprofit organization that fits my values, maybe that would work. I began to apply and got close to some of those positions. And you will too, if you think about your own skills in that way. And I kept networking, and that's what got me back here, because someone told me about the position here at the Chamber of Commerce. And I called the president and I said, I hear the position's open. And a couple of months later, I was hired. And I'm giving you sort of the generic spin on all of this without the details, but I kept in the mix. And I did that by going back to somebody and telling them I wanted to look into different jobs. And I kept meeting with that person twice during the year. I stayed in touch. And sure enough, a couple of weeks later, I got that call. So that's important for you going forward, and to all of you here. Before I turn it back to Duncan, I would urge you just one word to keep with you today, and that is authenticity. authenticity, self-honesty. Be yourself. Stay active and optimistic with your job search, and you will find a job. It will happen, I guarantee. So I'd like to introduce our next presenter here for this portion this afternoon, Duncan McIntyre of American Job Centers. And Duncan, take it away. You've got many good things to offer us today.
There you go. So thank you very much. That was great. Great information from both of you. I was taking a lot of notes here, so I'll steal that for my next presentation. Thank you for doing that. I actually do workshops sometimes on Skype interviewing, and I'm glad to say I might have a problem going through this, as I'm going to be trying to dodge the sunshine coming through my window because of the lighting. So if you see me bouncing around and there's a glow on my face, I am pretty happy to be here, but it's also because the sun is starting to come through my window. I'm usually not presenting at 3:30. So thank you so much for having me today. I've been at the American Job Center now for about pushing 11 years. So I have been working with people, helping them get the skills that they need to go back to work. So as Fran said, I am truly honored to be here and share this information. Hopefully somebody will pull some tidbits out of this that will really help you. So I'm going to go ahead and share my PowerPoint here. I will be going pretty quickly as we go through this. So if anybody has questions, please just throw them in the chat and I will be able to see them and I will answer them. And we'll do a little bit at the end. If you have questions, I can answer them then if I don't get to them immediately. So it will be a good idea for you to have a pen and pad just to take notes as we go through this. There's a few websites and things like that I will share with you. So again, my name is Duncan with the American Job Center. And I want to mention that back in the day, I made an awesome sub sandwich. I was a sandwich artist. And I want to talk about that because I didn't realize that I was very young. I was in college. I made a mean sub sandwich. There was a night that a Bruce Springsteen concert got over. 25 people showed up at the door at about 11 o'clock and I was by myself. So I had to serve all those people. Didn't think much about it until a year or so later. There was a job. I had moved to Atlanta, as you can probably tell from my accent, and I was interviewing for a customer service job, which I really knew nothing about. And they asked me, do you have any experience? And it popped into my head, which now in hindsight was a transferable skill. Absolutely, I had customer service experience. In fact, I served over 25 people single-handedly at Subway. And I think that one answer led into a position as a customer service rep for the company I did not know at the time was the place that did all the calls for the New York Times newspaper. I got skills there, learned about the newspaper. They saw something in me. Transferable skills led to a management position in Atlanta. I got skills, realized pretty quickly that I could not beat 25 people. I had to train them. So I started training the staff to where I could sit back a little bit. Because of that, they promoted me to DC. I also lived there for a while, Ray. And to make a long story short, I kept getting bigger jobs, training my staff. The staff would learn what to do, and I wouldn't have to do anything if I did my training job right. Then a position came up for a training position in these 3 states. So I became the director of training for New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut. All of these were transferable skills. One job built on something I learned in that previous job. And to make a long story short, that ended up me being the national performance manager. And again, I was just going around the country doing training workshops. Then I found myself in a situation. I had custody of 2 young children. I needed another job. The schedule, it was a newspaper, so that's not really conducive to raising 2 children when you're working every Friday and Saturday night. I applied for a job at the American Job Center, which was a job I had never heard of. I did not even know that job existed. And what that job was a job developer was the title at the time. I read through it, and you needed to have experience with resumes and writing resumes and some training. And when I thought about it, I had done bits and pieces of all of those things. So obviously that worked out okay because of transferable skills. I got this job, and now I'm kind of back to what I used to do and what my passion is. I do workshops and I work with people. I'm a pretty compassionate person. I get to see people who are not working find their way and end up getting jobs. So it is a wonderful, wonderful job for me. So I just wanted to share that, kind of goes along with what Ray said. Think of what you have done in the past and how you can parlay those skills into what next career that you have planned. So I want to, if you will, put in the chat, and I want to do a call out for Dennis, Cindy, and Joan for answering the chat earlier. We can't see who all's in here, but it is wonderful if you respond. Otherwise, I feel like I'm talking to the wall, and I do that out here all the time anyway, with the pandemic. So my first question is really a two-part question. If you'll put in the chat, what is your previous or your current job if you're still working? And then what career do you wish to transition into? And if you're unsure, that's fine. That happens to a lot of people in the pandemic. You might have lost your job just because the place closed and you haven't really thought about that. So if you will, put that in the chat. And I'm just going to continue here because of time. I've got great information to share with you, but so you don't have to put this next thing in the chat, but I want you to think about what goals have you put around that. If you are transitioning into a new job, what are your goals to make that a reality? So as you're putting those in the chat, I just want to bring up, and this really goes right along with what Fran was saying, there is a website called mynextmove.org. You might want to write that down, or any millennials in here, you probably already have your camera out and you're taking a picture of your screen right now. It took me a few years to learn that little trick, but mynextmove.org, it's part of the Department of Labor. If you're registered on CT Hires, you may have already done this, but it's just an awesome tool where they ask you a series of questions, and then it will guide you into what careers are a great match for someone with your skills and with your personality traits. So I just wanted to throw that up there. Another thing, I found this on Google, it's very easy to pull up, that will help you, is just a really good list of transferable skills. Having worked at this point with literally thousands of people who are trying to find their way and trying to find a new job, or even a similar job, a lot of times people don't realize kind of how awesome they are, how many skills that they might have that would be something you want to present either on a resume or in an interview when you get that magic question, tell me a little bit about yourself. We've all heard that before. That is when you want to present your skills as they apply to what that job is. And a lot of them are listed here. I cannot tell you how many people I have had that were bilingual, but they forgot that that was important. I had someone who spoke 3 languages fluently. It was not on the resume, and they didn't tell me for about an hour, and therefore it does not exist. But that is a huge transferable skills. If you've ever been in a situation before where you were that person that a new hire was brought in and they shadowed you, well, you're a new hire trainer. That's a great thing to put out there that will demonstrate skills that you have. And it just goes on and on. I'm not going to go through that crazy long looking list, but you can just Google transferable skill checklist and this will pop up. There's hundreds of them out there. Another quick tool I want to share is called Rescuemyresumes.com. This is a free site. A lot of them charge. This one does not charge. Important to note that there's an S in resumes. It's Rescuemyresumes.com. And the thing I like about this, if you're looking for transferable skills, you can put in a job title and it has a drop-down menu that will come up and it will show some of the skills associated with that particular job that you might have just forgotten that you've done. So another great site to go on to. And last but not least, before I move ahead, very important that you study backwards and forward job postings. Once you have gone through, as Fran was saying, you've navigated the waters, you've narrowed your focus down, and you do know what career you want to go into, then start studying job postings. They're telling you right there what skills they want you to have. And you might find out that you either have a lot of those skills or with just a little bit of training, you can match that job. So that's where you find out if you're a good fit, and also going on websites and just looking at the culture of the company is another way. But definitely study the job postings for any job you're interested in. There's a lot of hidden information in there that you would need to know in an interview. So I'm going to talk a minute about goal setting as it applies to navigating the waters. I'm going to steal that from you again, Fran, because I love that, navigating the waters and narrowing your focus here. Important that you do stay focused. It can get extremely difficult. there's not a lot of money to be had right now. There are people out, the unemployment rate is off the chart. Jobs are changing. We have to learn new ways to do things. And it's very difficult. And a lot of times you can feel like you're being pulled in 100 different directions and you just don't know what to do. So I'm going to talk a minute about SMART goals. And if you have heard this before, that is great. I have to remind myself all the time to make my goals, which goals are really just their dreams until you put them through this little grid. And it applies so much to that job search. So I want to talk about worrying. We tend to get a little carried away. And when I found this, I thought this was great. I have worked on this chart here for the last few years, and I certainly will not say I have mastered this, but I have gotten so much better when that negative internal dialogue comes in and tells me, you can't do that, you don't know how to do that, or we all have different things that slow us down or stop us, or like my exercise in the morning, it's much funner to play with my puppy than to exercise. But this worry chart is a good thing to be aware of. 40% of all things we worry about never happen. If you can master the art of throwing those things away and focus, if you look at the bottom, I'm not good at math, but I'm pretty sure half of 8% leaves 4% of the things that we as humans worry about are things that we can actually change. Imagine if you focused everything you've got on that 4% that you want to do something about. The second one here where it says 30%, I have to tell on myself here. I find myself, and this was not long ago, I did this. I was pondering, kind of daydreaming, harassing myself emotionally about my parenting skills. My children are 23 and 25. I was thinking about something that happened 10 years ago. And did I do that right? Who cares? It's 10 years ago. It's already happened. There's nothing I can do. And I was able to stop it just by being aware of this chart. So this chart really has made a big difference. So I wanted to share that. Now, we're going to talk about something really fun here. Ray's looking at me like, where's this thing going? I want you to think a moment about grocery shopping. So think for a second, are you the one who does the grocery shopping, or have you ever been the one who does the grocery shopping for yourself or for your family? Now, put in the chat, if you will, I'm going to see if I can read people's minds here. What happens when you go to the grocery store without a list? And presenters, you can feel free to jump in here on this too. This is kind of my favorite. You see, I'm getting all excited here. I love this little piece of this presentation that I threw together. So what happens when you go shopping? No shopping list. So I'm not going to even open up and see if anybody put that in there. I have presented this little section here to a couple of hundred people. I always get the same answers every time. So I am just going to assume somebody is thinking, well, I get a lot of things that I don't need. If it's me, I'm coming home with barbecue potato chips, and there will be Lay's, and they're right there at the entrance to Stop and Shop, even though I know I don't need them and I've sworn off of them. But, that's what happens if I don't have my list. I will forget the important things that I need. You go there, you come home with all this stuff, you spend all your money. Where's the milk and bread? I forgot all about it. A lot of people tend just to go down the aisle. You wander around, you get all these things. Happens to all of us. And there's usually somebody in the room that says, oh, I make a list every time. I don't forget anything. And I would like to say that that's me, but sometimes I leave my phone in the car and Alexa didn't add things I thought I told her to. And next thing you know, it's barbecue potato chips and ice cream. So the reason I wanted to share that is it's so important to realize that applies not just to the grocery store. It absolutely applies to your job search. It applies to you making that decision of what needs to happen here if I am going to transition from one career into another career. You have got to make a plan. You have got to write it down. Now, some of your goals might be, okay, update your resume, update my cover letter, go onto a website. Maybe I need to get some training. Here's going to be a bad plug here. Maybe I need to go to the American Job Center and get more of these workshops that Duncan presents. Maybe it's online learning. But the fact of the matter is, none of those things that you're looking at right there are very good goals. The reason is that they're not SMART goals. So for those of you following me who have a pad and pen there, if you will, write the word SMART going down, write the S under that, put M-A-R-T going down. And this applies to really everything in life. Again, it's something I started doing when my children were very young. And my daughter actually, she ended up getting a full scholarship through college in the honors program. And she's big on this. She reminds me all the time, Dad, is that a SMART goal? I mean, no, it's not. I have to go back and check on that. So when you're making your goals, it's important that, first of all, they are specific. Secondly, measurable. And that's one that I tend to just struggle with a little bit. Sometimes I'll have a great dream, but I'm like, wait a minute, that's not measurable. How do I even know if I'm on the right track or not? Next, the A stands for achievable. Make sure you have achievable goals surrounding your career goals. Realistic, and Fran talked a lot about this, you have to be brutally honest with yourself. Is this something that is going to work out for you? If it's going to take 9 years of college, but you need to go to work in 1 year, then it might not be realistic. Last but not least, and I think the one that most people struggle with, is time specific. You have got to put a deadline on whatever your goals are. So if we look at this list again that I pulled up a moment ago, the fact of the matter is those are great kind of dreams, but they're not SMART goals. Obtain new certifications. That sounds good, but that's not specific. It's not very measurable. Definitely it is achievable, probably realistic. There's no deadline on it. So if we were going to attack that, put it through this grid of SMART goals, I would say by July 1st, I will have my certification as a CNA. And I think that covers all of it. Specific, measurable, achievable, time specific. There's a deadline on it. Even better yet, I would break that down into smaller sub goals. By next Friday at 2 p.m., and it's important to write these things down, I will have contacted the American Job Center, see how I did that there, to find out if they have scholarships for CNA training. And then that could be your first goal. You pat yourself on the back, you move on to another goal. It is important that you make goals that you can achieve. Otherwise, you know, I tend to fall off my goals. If I don't do something that I said I was going to do, I'll throw my hands up in the air. And it's a very common thing in videos and all kind of studying that I've done. So make sure they are achievable and realistic goals. Break them down to smaller goals. I'm just going to hit on one other one here. If it's something, I had somebody just do this recently and it worked beautifully. She kept saying in the workshop, I'm going to do my resume. So she came in the next week, didn't think I would remember that. And I said, how'd you do? Did you do your resume? No, but I'm going to. So I called her out, and you know, we had worked together quite a bit. I said, put that through SMART goals. So she told me I will have my resume completed and in the hands of this particular person we were working with, trying to make that connection with. And she told me by 4:30. I talked to her this morning. She said I was a little bit late. She got the thing done and she had emailed it at 4:59. So, I mean, who cares? She still did it, and that goal kept her moving forward. So whatever your goals might be, if, you know, I hear, yeah, I'm going to do my LinkedIn profile, do it. Write it down, specific, measurable, achievable, realistic. Give yourself a time deadline. So one more thing, then I'm going to share some great resources that we have. When I was very young, I think I was 12 years old, I got to meet Pele. So I have followed Pele. He's the world's greatest soccer player. Some say one of the just greatest athletes. So he has this great quote here that I wanted to share. Success is not determined by how many times you win, but how you play the week after you lose. And I've just always thought that was a marvelous, marvelous quote from him. And if you like that, I would suggest that you look up Pele. He's got scores of great quotes like that. So I'm going to kind of segue into what we do at the American Job Center. These are a lot of services to help people exactly in the situations that it sounds like a lot of you are in. So, and again, I'm going to go quickly. I'll give you a website at the end, and you can visit us at workforcealliance.biz, and you can find out more information about all of this, or go to an orientation. So we have a self-service and staff-supported career research hub. Just last week, we have now opened for in-person scheduled appointments, but it's extremely limited. And hopefully that will change, and I'll be back to work soon. But for now, most of it is done virtually, the workshops that we do virtually. Another shameless plug here. I have a great job club that we do on Fridays. Once you are a member and you're working with us at the American Job Center, and we've built that up, there's usually about 30 participants come in each Friday. And we have local businesses from New Haven come in. So far, we've had Yale University has come in, Amazon has joined us. Lots of local businesses have come in, and their HR department will usually share what does it take to get a job with us. And kind of off the topic, but in a way it is, every single one has said it is all about a match in company culture. And we're over 13 different businesses have come in, and I always ask them that question. They say, we'd rather have someone that fits in our culture, but needs training than somebody who has all the skills that does not fit our culture. So remember that when you're doing that transition. So we have career guidance. You could work with, someone like me. I'm the facilitator. We have another person who does facilitation, and you would work with a job seeker consultant who, I was adding up the number of years. It's hundreds of years of experience when you add everyone together, because people who fall into this line of work, they're very passionate about it. We frequently have leads for opportunities. As I said, we work with local businesses. We do have training scholarships for in-demand occupations. We work with a lot of people referred to us from the Department of Labor who are unemployed. We have recruitments, virtual job fairs, hot jobs, hiring events that we do often. There's actually a business services team that works with Workforce Alliance who goes out and finds businesses. Sometimes we get jobs that are not even posted yet, so we can match those who we're working with those available positions. Of course, resume, cover letter, critique, job readiness workshops, that would be me, and a whole lot of more information. So these slides here, again, I don't want to run out of time. I'm going to go quickly, but there's a potential for you to get scholarships to get training, which is really good if you are looking to change from hospitality into a different career. There's a lot of training that we do in healthcare. There's something called HCAP. This is really for low-income job seekers who are looking to get CNA or pharmacy tech training, and that's called HCAP. There's some information there if you want it, but again, this is all on workforcealliance.biz. We have another sector that we do a lot of work with in manufacturing, and Skill Up for Manufacturing is a program where we take people, we pay for the training. Depending on what time of year or when this is happening, a lot of times there are actually stipends given to participants who go through this training. And then they come out, and that we do our best to match them up with local businesses who are hiring in manufacturing. Education and social services, another sector that we work very closely with. And then this is called FIRE, if you've ever heard of that: trades and construction, transportation, finance, insurance, real estate. So these are all different career pathways that you might decide that you want to go into when maybe you go to ONET and you realize, hey, I think I would be a really good match for this, but I never thought of it. Then reach out to us or any of these other great places that you know about to get training to make yourself a good fit for those jobs. A couple of other things we have what's called Talent Market. Talent Market is the best way I can describe that in 20 seconds. That's our internal Indeed. That's where our business services group puts jobs that they have found for companies we're working with, and we're able to match our participants to those jobs. Through maybe we know somebody has gone through, let's say, Skill Up for Manufacturing. They have this training. We put their resume in Talent Market. Our Talent Market business services specialists just put jobs in there, so we make that match. We also have what's called the Academy with over 8,000 online courses. I used to do that as a standalone workshop. It is outstanding, and our company has now partnered with LinkedIn Learning. So between LinkedIn Learning having over 10,000 courses plus the Academy, and it segues seamlessly. You can go into the Academy and then start getting training from LinkedIn Learning. There's over 18,000 courses. So if you need to up your skill in Microsoft Word, or if you need to work on your interview skills, or maybe you want to work on your resume, there's Six Sigma training in there. I mean, I can't go through 18,000 courses, but it's incredible. And I have been told that there is free training for the Academy during the pandemic. So if you are interested in that, usually they're like 2-hour classes. At the end of the class, you can print a certificate. There'll be a little test. I believe you need to make 80% or better. But again, if you're interested in these, I'm going to show you the website. A because I know I'm talking very quickly here. This is our locations. We have standalone offices in New Haven on El Grasso Boulevard. That's where my office is now, but I've also worked in Meriden, and the Middletown is where I actually started. And because we're partners with Department of Labor, we work out of the Hamden DOL too, if any of you have been there on Marne Street. So I think I'm doing pretty good for a Southern guy. What do you say, Ray? It's 3:51. I'm moving out here. So this is the website. I'll leave that up for a moment. Workforcealliance.biz. If you are interested in applying for services at the American Job Center, you go there. There's a quick video that you watch. We are now doing virtual orientations, and I'll actually be doing the first one, I believe, on the 2nd of March. So I would love to see any of you in there. So see if I know what I'm talking about or not.
This is so useful, Duncan. This wonderful information.
Thank you. And you know, you can tell I spent a lot of time on this one here. This really goes to goal setting. I try to tell myself this each morning. This is the only February 25th we're ever going to get. And I want to thank all of you who came in here today. I mean, this was a public event. Hundreds of people could have come in. It looks to me like there's about 14 participants. So that tells me right there, you're already pretty motivated. You're already that kind of person. So thank you so much for joining me. I mean, I love this. You can tell everybody in here presenting, they love doing this and helping people. So that's what we're here for. Please take advantage of all these things. And with that, I'm going to stop sharing and turn it back over to all of you.
Thank you, Duncan.
Thank you.
All right, that was so good. Started with Fran, and she talked to us about our 8 tips. Then we went to Ray, who shared his personal story and explained how he transitioned. And then we closed things up with Duncan, who talked about SMART goals and resources and training and all the things we could take advantage of. So a very full, comprehensive session. So kudos to all of you. Thank you so much for sharing your insight and your information. Ray, I saw that you put your contact information in the chat.
Yes.
Duncan, if you might do that too. And Fran, if you want to put your information in the chat so that people can reach out to you.
Sure.
Great. And I'll just pause to see if there are any questions in general from anyone out there. Let's see. And I'm also looking at the Whova platform. So someone is asking on the platform here, when will slides be available? So I'll ask you, will you be able to, I know this of course is going to be recorded, so we'll share the recording. So I guess we'll share the slides through the recording. That's the way I'd answer that question. Let me see if there's anything else in here. There was one question that was asked, someone that was on Whova, is if you feel there is discrimination against you, what can you do? So I don't know who wants to answer
There is
that.
a hotline for that through the Department of Labor. I'll jump off and Google that very quickly, but there's definitely a discrimination hotline. That's probably all you would need to Google. And that's not something they take lightly.
Okay. Very good. All right. I think the other questions that were asked on Whova have been answered. And then let me see if there's anything else on the Zoom. I think a question for you, Fran. Can Boomer Den also help a company find skilled workers for full-time or contract employment?
Absolutely so. Whether it's, you know, as you said, part-time or temporary, we customize to find the right person for whatever that situation is. Absolutely so.
Okay.
And I just posted that phone number there.
Okay.
Discrimination claims.
Great.
Thank you. Okay, I think we have all the questions. I think we've addressed all the questions. Yep, looks like it. So again, thank you all so much for your time and for your talent and expertise.
You're very
and all of you out there, we hope that you reach out to these people and take full advantage of all the resources that you learned about today.
Right.
And if you would like to join the next session that starts at 4 o'clock, that talks about the top industries in the region, you'll have to leave this session and then go to the next one at 4 o'clock on HUVA.
All right.
Thank you, Tamika. Thank you, Ray.
Thank you so much.
Fran, Duncan, a pleasure to be with you.
Absolutely. Thank you. Have a good day. Fran, see you later, neighbor.
You got it. Bye, Duncan.
All right. Take
Bye-bye.
care. Bye-bye. And remember, everyone, visit those booths.